Going to hear from Miss Laura Newman. She is a dietitian, also a veteran. So we have several veterans on staff here. I have the pleasure of working with Laura in various capacities related to intuitive eating and eating disorders. So she has a really broad knowledge base and is specialized in several areas. So I'm going to be quiet and let you take it away.
All right. So nutrition is definitely one of the key components to a healthy pregnancy and postpartum period. Honestly, the nutrition goals for pregnancy and after are the recommendations anyway, are very much the same as I recommend for people of, and especially women of all ages. But it just becomes even more important because, of course, the baby will get what he or she needs, during all stages of pregnancy and postpartum, if you're breastfeeding especially. But sometimes that leaves the mother deficient if you're not able to get in everything that you need. So during pregnancy, the goals are, there are weight gain goals, and I haven't listed them in here because that sometimes is a touchy subject, but it certainly is something that is often monitored by your OBGYN. And there's a lot of reasons for some of the recommendations that are there, and you'll see in a later slide where all that it's not just, certainly not just the baby or fat. The weight goes a lot of places, so that's important. Trying to limit any excess or not enough weight gain, because either extreme can result in some complications possibly for you or the baby. But yeah, regular balanced diet, and we'll see that in another slide. If you're not already active, then trying to add some activity in safely. There's lots of great resources for how to either remain or or become active during pregnancy. It's highly recommended that you do it again, unless your provider has recommended against that for some reason. There are some limited cases where that may need to be the case. Other healthy behavior changes, as far as smoking and alcohol cessation if necessary, again, just to reduce any risk for the baby. And if you have other complications or medical issues, then sometimes the nutrition and nutrition recommendations need to get a little more specific. So definitely reaching out to a dietitian, whether it's myself or any of the other dietitians at the other outpatient clinics, will be happy to help. Afterwards, breastfeeding, there certainly are lots of benefits for both baby and mom, but of course, fed is best. So as long as the baby gets what he or she needs, then and that whatever works best for mom and baby, both physically and mentally, is really what's important. If you are breastfeeding, though, you want to try to match your food intake with your activity level. And again, if you've chosen to breastfeed, then you will need more calories than if you don't. And then really just want to carry forward any of those healthy habits that you established during pregnancy, and definitely make a plan to allow for some time to take care of yourself as well. So, and that goes with not just making sure that you are eating and staying well hydrated, but that you're also getting some time by yourself, adequate rest, some movement of some kind, and and just taking that time for yourself. So when we look, again, like I said, when we look at the actual specific nutrition recommendations during pregnancy, it's really just very much the same as what we recommend at any stage of life. Following the plate method as far as proportions and foods, including multiple food groups, variety of different colors of fruits and vegetables, different types of whole grains, lean protein, low fat, or even some, really dairy of any kind. Um, and now the one thing that definitely goes up is your need for fluid, more so if you later on if you choose to breastfeed, but definitely while you're pregnant as well, because as you'll see in another slide, your blood volume will increase to provide nutrients to the developing fetus. So you're gonna need some fluid. Some more specific recommendations that for pregnant women in particular are to avoid this saccharin, which is the pink packet, or sweet and low. There are some, there have been some demonstrated birth defects have been tied to that. Other non-sugar containing artificial sweeteners, there's not been any research or other evidence to suggest that anything else is harmful. Limiting caffeine. So there, and this sometimes depends on your particular provider and also what you have going on. If you have, a history of high blood pressure or a history of preeclampsia or anything like that, they may recommend that you really reduce your caffeine intake even further or avoid it. But otherwise, in the absence of other complications, that as long as you're staying under about 200 milligrams per day, it's usually all right. You do want to be mindful of where you might be getting caffeine from. So, so coffee, tea, sodas tend to be some of the bigger sources, possibly energy drinks. Then also things like chocolate or other, like food items or gums or other things that may have caffeine added to them. Just being aware of all the potential sources of that, trying to keep track of roughly, how much you're getting in. Sometimes searching online can be, for caffeine content for specific things can be helpful, especially different types of coffee from different kinds of places. There's a wide variation in the actual caffeine content. If you compare, for example, Starbucks coffee to Dunkin' Donuts coffee to homebrewed coffee, very different. Avoiding unpasteurized food products, which would be things like some soft cheeses, or especially anything that's maybe could potentially be somewhat undercooked or even raw, like sushi, just to avoid any potential for any kind of foodborne illness, which might not be a big deal, or just be an uncomfortable couple of days if you're not pregnant, but if you are, could be potentially a more serious event. And then mercury content in fish and seafood is another topic that often comes up. Absolutely encourage you to eat fish and seafood. It's an excellent source of protein and a lot of the healthy fats, but just trying to choose those that are lighter or lower in mercury content. So generally fish that are a bit smaller, or seafood that's a bit smaller in size, when it's in the water. So things like shrimp or the canned light tuna, not the white tuna, salmon, tilapia, catfish, flounder, other smaller white fishes. Basically, you want to avoid the large, some of the larger fish like king mackerel, shark, tilefish, things like that. So I mentioned before, there are weight gain recommendations. Why? To make sure that all of these areas in the body that you can see in this pie chart here get the additional nutrients and are able to to expand to accommodate the developing fetus appropriately. So as I mentioned, your blood volume goes up. Obviously, some of that weight is going to be the baby, him or herself, especially towards the end of the pregnancy, placenta, amniotic fluid, and just other fluids. Our body needs to expand a lot of things, and then also just storing extra nutrients. So that is the reason that then you do need extra calories to support that. Calories are a unit of energy, so that's what they're doing, is powering your body and providing these additional energy stores and nutrients. But it's usually not a big difference until you reach the second trimester, and then some more in the third trimester. So, and we're looking at a few hundred extra calories. So something that I usually say is, while you're eating for two, you're not eating for two of you. So you're not eating for two full-grown adults. So so just being mindful of that, using your appetite as a guide. for some women, it's hard, especially early in the pregnancy to eat enough if you're dealing with morning sickness or just a lot of, food aversions or things like that. So it's doing the best you can, but just being mindful of the fact that, yeah, you do need some extra calories, but not a lot more. Some specific nutrients beyond just calories in general that are important during pregnancy are listed there. So we do need, again, this is really mostly to make sure that you don't wind up, you as the mother don't wind up deficient in something, because developing fetuses are kind of like parasites. They're going to take what they need for growth and development, but that could leave you short if you're not getting enough. So calcium, iron, zinc, folic acid, and fiber are really the big ones. And depending on the particular type of prenatal vitamin that you are hopefully taking, they do provide a bit more, than a standard multivitamin will. So in many cases, they get you close, but you can see especially for calcium, they may not quite give you enough. And then fiber, of course, you really can primarily going to get from food. That's not going to be in a prenatal vitamin, but just making sure that that you are eating, as you can see, a variety of foods, especially different fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and protein, meats, seafood, nuts, things like that. That'll help to make sure that you get what you need. And then, so for after pregnancy, if you do choose to breastfeed, you will again need some additional calories, because you're still going to be feeding a whole nother human being. And in this case, it is that your calorie needs are actually a little bit more, because now the baby's needs are going to be a bit more than when they were a smaller developing fetus. So again, variety of types of foods, and getting adequate fiber again from vegetables, fruit, whole grains, drinking at least 8-ounce glasses of water, but you're probably going to need even more, and it's especially true if you're trying to increase once you get cleared, to increase your activity level. And if you're doing any kind of exercise, or even just going for walks, you're going to be sweating, so you need to account for that. You're going to need a lot more water to maintain enough volume to produce enough milk for the baby. If you are following a vegetarian or especially a vegan diet, then you may need some specific additional vitamins, again, to make sure that you don't wind up deficient in those. Sometimes milk supply can be a challenge for some women, and there are a variety of different supplements and ingredients. And so, some of these things are just naturally occurring in foods, like, oats. So, if you eat oatmeal, a bowl of oatmeal every day, a lot of times that helps. But some of these you may find in supplement form, and there's all kinds of different, products out there too that are actually marketed at breastfeeding moms. A lot of those you may or may not need. You may or may not actually notice any kind of difference in your milk supply by adding these in. And in some cases, there may be some, contraindications if you're on certain other medications or have certain health concerns. So before adding or trying any of these things, other than the things I mentioned that are, already in food, and then you're definitely check with your doctor, lactation consultant, or even a dietitian for more information on those.
Great. Thank you so much, Laura. That was wonderful.